Stephen, can we hear your dulcet tones?
Unfortunately, I think you can.
Yeah, we're all good. We're all good. So, how are you picking this team?
So, a couple of weeks ago, I said that I want to try and get a player from each team into the starting 15. That's now done away with because I just couldn't bring myself to put any of the English in the 15 or even in the replacements bench. And also, there's a couple of Italians that are fighting their way into if not the starting 15, at least on the replacements bench. Then they needed to play. Last time I said they needed to play a minimum of 70 minutes over the first 2 rounds, because obviously 2 rounds you can't really have too much more than 70 minutes. But now I've changed that. So they needed to have played at least 3 games in some capacity, whether they started or came off the bench doesn't really matter, as long as they were involved in 3 games out of the 5. And then I could also, because it's my team, I could move players around if I didn't feel like they were in their best position, or at least how I would want to play them by their coach. So, for example, if you've got an outside centre playing inside centre, I would be happy enough, provided that they've done so beforehand. So you couldn't take Tadhg Furlong and put him to fly off, even though I really, really wanted to.
You are still taking up the rules of rugby union and completely ripping them up, as we'll discover in the back row once again this time. Do you want to take us through your front 5 first of all?
So last time I got a bit of slack from people online that I didn't have too many French forwards in the squad, mainly because after the first 2 rounds they were looking very one-dimensional, which they were. Again, I was just on the 2 rounds, not so much the history. They were looking very one-dimensional. So I'll start off with the changes that I've made. I've got Cyril Bay, Julian Marchand, and Winnie Antonio as my front row, the Grand Slam front row. Then I've put in Paul Willemse and Tadhg Byrne as the second row.
The obvious question I have here is that France front row. If you can put on your South Africa hat here, no problem. Are you looking at them cowering in fear, or are you saying to yourself, listen, no one in the Six Nations worries us?
Well, as a South African, it's difficult to be overly concerned about any front rows coming up against South African front rows, because we have the 2 best front rows in the world in our starting front row and our bench front row. However, this French side is terrifying purely because they have a combination of exciting backline and that front row. And that front row does worry me a little bit as a neutral. Winnie Antonio is probably the most athletic 145 kilogram player you will ever meet in your entire life, and the way that front row scrums is it's pure and utter perfection. Like their technique is not just pure domination and physicality. There's also the way that how tight they are together, and the way that they manipulate the opposition scrum. You just have to look back at what they did to Tadhg Furlong, and if I remember correctly, Porter was in that game against France. That was the start of why Tadhg Furlong is not in my starting front row anymore, because you can look at England and whether or not Ellis Genge was scrumming illegally. We've spoken about that on the show before. The cracks in Furlong's scrummaging game were seen a week earlier or 2 weeks earlier against France.
That's true. I think that the whole kind of talk about the refereeing only came up after the England game, whereas after France it was like they're quite a bit better than us, aren't they? So that's fair enough. Just one quick sidebar on this, and then we're going to get to the backs in a sec. So you're saying that South Africa have the 2 best front rows in the world. How many South African backs would get into the French backline?
Oof. I would probably argue 3.
Okay.
With Cheslin Colby, Lukhanyo and actually maybe just the 2 of them.
Just the 2 of them.
Mapimpi would be it would be difficult to throw in Mapimpi in place of Villiers or Penaud, but he would be fighting his way in. But that French backline is terrifying.
Yeah, I presume it's going to be a matchup that we will see at the World Cup next year. It's going to be really, really interesting. The back row then, this is, if you didn't see Stephen's first team, he picks 2 sevens. That's the way we roll in this team.
Yeah, Technically, I've got four on my back row because I couldn't split Hamish Watson and Rory Dodge. They're basically the same person, and they actually, I've got a bit of a Scottish bias apparently by the looks of things. No, when they play on the same team, they remind me of Michael Hooper and David Pocock when they were playing together for Australia. If the ball goes down anywhere near them, basically it's a turnover to Scotland. Then I've got Josh van der Flier as my 7. Obviously, we can't get around Josh van der Flier. He's been one of the best things in a green jersey for this year. The only thing better than him has been Tyke Byrne, and then even though in the last 2 rounds Aldred couldn't catch COVID if he wanted to, I still think he's the best 8th man in the world, and yes, that includes Dwayne Vermeulen. I think Gregory Aldred is without doubt the most physical, most dominant 8th man, at least in the Six Nations, and we'll give a Dwayne Vermeulen or a Kieran, well, no, not Kieran, because he's retired now, but whoever runs out at 8 for the All Blacks this year, Aldred would put up a good fight against them. So that's my back back row. The only Welshman that I could fit into the forward pack were on the bench, with Adam Beard getting replaced by Paul Willemse, purely because Wales pulled in Italy over the past 2 weeks. And then Talupe Faletau has been one of the surprise packages for Wales, coming back and just looking like he's never missed a second in a red jersey. So those are my Welsh contingent.
Give us your halfbacks then.
No surprises really. Antoine Dupont, World Player of the Year, best number 9 in the world. Cannot fault him. One thing that I would be interested to see is how he plays up against plays with a pack that's going backwards, because obviously the French pack never goes backwards. We've seen it every now and then in the top 14 where he hasn't been the most. Obviously with the way that the French top 14 works, you're not always going to be moving forward, but that's a different level to international. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes against say the New Zealand or South Africa, where they can put the pack backwards. And then Romain Ntamak, of course, been the form fly half in Six Nations this year. He's played the most rugby, and he's also just been phenomenal. I know I've said that we're not looking at any form before the Six Nations, but anyone that can receive a ball in your own dead ball line against New Zealand and have not only the cojones to run it out of your own dead ball line, but successfully do it and make 60 metres, deserves to be in any starting lineup.
That's for sure. So, no Sexton or Smith here. Not that anybody expected them to be here ahead of. Sorry, I should say that Bigger and Garbisi are your replacements. Sorry, so I mean no Sexton or Smith on the bench ahead of those guys. So, give us your thought process there.
Well, so as I mentioned earlier, Italy. If I was picking this team this time next year, Paolo Garbisi would be one of the 3 potential Italians that would be starting. He's been phenomenal, and he was a large part of the reason why Italy actually got their first win in 7 years against Wales. And then apart from that Italian performance, the performance against Italy, Dan Bigger has been brilliant at controlling the game, and his tactical kicking has been second to none. And the only person better than him under the high ball is Hugo Keenan. Marcus Smith has been he's had a good Six Nations, and the number of player of the matches that he's won would suggest that he should be in this team. However, I don't believe he deserved half of the player of the matches that he got. Not because he wasn't playing well in those matches, but I think he wasn't the best English person on the pitch in those matches. So, for example, Mario Itoje deserved at least one of them that Marcus Smith got. So again, like Garbisi, if I'm picking it next year, it'll be a fight between Smith and Garbisi. Smith isn't the complete package yet. He's still developing his role as leading that English backline. So it could be a little bit longer before we see him in a team of the tournament. And Johnny Sexton, I probably should not walk on the streets of Dublin after I say this today. I don't see Ireland winning a World Cup with Johnny Sexton at 10 anymore. He's he doesn't play enough rugby. And obviously we need to manage his minutes. We need because he's going to be 38 in the next World Cup. But when when he has played, he's played really well. Typical Johnny Sexton. But it's difficult to see him playing consistently for the entire group stages, then on to the quarterfinals, and then into the semi-finals if Ireland finally break the semi-finals.
How big is a bigger thing is that for Farrell, where it's like, well, we need to think of the future here. We need to make that move. Like,
yes, and with the likes of a Joey Carby, if you can't back him to beat France, then you can't back him to get you to a quarterfinal. You need Sexton needs to start. Somebody needs to obviously take the jersey off Sexton. But Sexton also won't be the one holding on to the jersey, in my opinion, to get Ireland to a final.
And also as well, when you talk about that, the schedule as well, I know we're getting into the minutiae here, is the last two games of the pool for Ireland are South Africa, then Scotland, and then a quarter-final, all going well. Now the thing is, they have changed the format of the Rugby World Cup where there is a week off in between South Africa and Scotland, so he could play both of those, but then it's Scotland and potentially a quarter-final. Like, is that your point essentially, that it's just how robust he's going to be, that you can't see him playing all those games, or have you actually seen a dip from Sexton that gives you cause for concern as well?
I haven't seen any dip at all, but the problem is I've seen he's played almost no rugby this year. You can count on one hand how many matches he's played for Leinster, and even in the Six Nations he didn't play. There was gaps, and he didn't start every match. So he's not getting the consistent game time that you want him to get. And remember that in a World Cup, you're going to have the likes of Hamish Watson and Rory Dodge gunning for him every 10 seconds. You're going to have, against South Africa, Kwaka Smith is going to be going for him, Peter Steph Toy. You're going to have so much attention on the 10. And the way that Sexton plays is he attacks the gain line so well that he puts himself in the position to get absolutely hammered. And against the best teams in the world, when he gets hammered again and again, for 6 weeks in a row, it's going to take his toll on 38 years old, and he's going to need to take breaks. And if you don't have a fly-off that can take those hits week in, week out at 25, 26 years old, I struggle to see how Sexton will be fit enough at the end, come the end of the tournament, to actually win and lift the Webb Ellis trophy.
Yeah, I think there's a real case to be made that Carberry should be starting at least one of these tests this summer in New Zealand to try and remedy that.
I think he should start all three personally.
Yeah, interesting. Take us through the back line then, the rest of the backs from 11 to 15. So
Mac Hansen keeps his place. I don't know why he was dropped for England at all, to be honest with you. I think he's been a great find this year, and he's been it's not just the work he does on the ball, but it's the work he does off of it as well. He's always looking for he's looking to be involved not only on attack but on defence, and the way that he gets involved in the dummy running and sort of drawing phases away from the actual attack. Again, I've got a bit of a Scottish lens here, because I think Chris Harris has had a fantastic Six Nations myself. He's got a reputation for his defence and his ability to stop an attack coming over the gain line. But I think this year he's also developed that bit of attacking flair into his game. We can remember that if it weren't for a slightly suspect pass, granted the movement was started by Duane van der Merwe, Chris Harris did a huge amount of work to break free against France, and then the suspect pass to Stuart Hogg didn't go to hand. I think he's done again. It's his work rate off the ball as well. He rucks well. He's involved in the turnover game, and he's been really good for Scotland. The reason why there's no Frenchman in the inside centre as well is because they haven't figured out exactly who their centre is with Jonathan Dante or Moafina. So because Gaultier hasn't nailed on his 12, I haven't nailed on his 12 either. Okay. But Gael Fiku maintains his outside centre spot. He's been phenomenal, as they all have, but what's particularly impressive is the way that an inside centre by nature defends the 13 channel with an 87% success rate. That 13, Brian O'Driscoll will tell you that 13 channel is probably one of the most difficult to defend, and moving from 12 to 13 and keeping that sort of percentages against the likes of a Gary Ringrose or whoever England sets out, and Chris Harris, etc. There's a skill level there that is just next level. He's also very physical, and he's got that speed. Again, Gavin Villiers stays in with the notable replacement of Damien Penaud. It's difficult to separate any of the French wings. If it weren't for Mac Hansen, I'd start Penaud and Villiers together on the wings, and they'd try scoring machines. Granted, they do have the luxury of playing outside Antoine Dupont, which is any wing would love, but he's been fantastic. And then Hugo Keenan, the most consistent man in Irish rugby. I don't think he's dropped the ball all season, and it was difficult to. We had this discussion about Rob Kearney, who's going to replace him. I don't think there's been much of a drop off at all, and in fact, I think Hugo Keenan adds a bit of counter-attacking flair and a bit of an attacking nature to him that Kearney never had. So he's actually looking a little bit more exciting, and probably, if he stays fit, and unless somebody can take it off of him, like a Michael Lowry, I think he might actually have a better career than Rob Kearney.
Right. He is amazing, in fairness. That is high praise, though, for Hugo Keenan. Good reaction. Adrian on YouTube says, first time I've ever heard Irish rugby analysed rationally on Irish radio. While Dave says, but Ireland has the best front row in the world. The over-hyper told me so. Name names, Dave. Certainly not know anybody on this show, definitely not. Richard Redball says the Sexton problem was waiting to happen when we went with him as our starting 10 after the last World Cup. Very quickly, Stephen, before we let you go, would South Africa beat this Six Nations team at the tournament?
It's a difficult question, actually. It depends on the style of play that South Africa bring.
I think you as coach are going to get a lot of flack with your position and rejigging if it doesn't happen.
Give us an answer here.
I would say maybe a 3-pointer in favour of the world champions.
Wow, so not only would South Africa destroy the competition if they joined the Six Nations, they would beat the entirety of the rest of the Six Nations.
Says the manager of the team.
Together, says South Africa head coach Stephen Kisbey-Green.
But would South Africa beat France at the moment? I don't know. So,
So basically, we've diluted France with this team of the tournament.
Pretty much.
Stephen, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, guys.